All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you also for accommodating a small change in time right after we finish. I'll be rushing down to Annapolis safely for the governor's State of the State address. And as always, I will be beginning about where our city stands in the fight against violence in Baltimore. As I noted last week, this is extremely early, but every day and every minute counts. Homicides are down 26% year over year, and non-fatal shootings are down 23% in the city of Baltimore, and that work will continue each and every day as always. And with that, let's talk about the return of recycling. Yesterday's breaking news is very true. At the end of last week, we received a batch of the much-needed trucks that we have been waiting on. Many of you know and have heard from me talking about this for years, nonstop about waiting for years for the delivery of these trucks, but due to the supply chain issues, we have not yet had them in hand. On Friday, we finally crossed the necessary threshold of 13 new trucks. I will note that we have so far only received a small fraction of the 80 trucks that we have originally ordered. The delivery of these trucks is a solid step towards getting us back to weekly recycling the first full week of March, as you all know, but there are still a few things that need to happen here in Baltimore. We need to make the return to weekly recycling sustainable. As you all know, there have been stops and starts in the past, and DPW and the DGS teams have pulled out all the stops to make sure that this one is the one that sticks and that we can do this the right way moving forward. It is a three-pronged approach, as you can see up on the screen, or will be able to see up on the screen in a second. The battery died in the keyboard there. Our city, and we're working on all of that, and we need to make sure that we understand that. The first prong we talked about, the vehicle fleet. There are still a few things that need to happen to make sure these vehicles are road ready, which the DGS team is working on now. Our city of Baltimore has very specific needs with old infrastructure and tight alleys, which means our teams have to do some extensive uplifting and custom modification to the trucks to get them road ready. In fact, I like to point out here a channel, my inner Burkay, to say that this is also what makes our trucks unique. We have to have our trucks custom built for Baltimore City streets and alleyways, which also was an issue for us. The second prong is staffing. I want to commend DPW on the staffing work they've done here. They've done a remarkable job in getting the solid waste ready through great recruitment and retention efforts. Last week, they hired some of the last remaining crews they need to meet their own benchmark to be ready to return to weekly recycling. Since July, DPW has either hired or promoted 35 new drivers and 74 new solid waste workers. And with the latest hires, solid waste is down to a 8.6 vacancy percentage rate, which is the lowest rate that it has been since before the pandemic arrived. Now, much like the trucks, not all of these new hires are immediately road ready. They have to be trained, they have to learn their routes, they have to also be prepared to get to work. So over the next few weeks, between now and the first week of March, DPW will be making sure that those folks are getting everything they need to go out on the road. And lastly, the third prong is about route optimization. For months now, DPW has taken some monumental steps to completely upgrade the way their crews run their routes. As you heard from me many times when I took this job, they were still doing these routes by paper map. And I think I may be one of the last people on the planet that remembers even how to use a paper map. But this is what was happening in DPW each and every day. The newly digital optimized routes have been in a testing phase since last month, and they will continue to round out that testing over the course of the next few weeks, specifically testing them with the exact crews that will be responsible for them. And dare I say, be very afraid, Burkay, because I'll probably be testing one myself.
I am
the director, be very afraid. These solid waste routes are some of the most complex and largest enterprises that the city government takes on. tens of thousands of stops along tricky streets and tight alleys, and every single one of them has their own little quirks. The route optimization process has taken all of that into account, and I want to commend DPW for reimagining these routes in a very, very big way. A lot of you have heard me talk about that over and over again, and this is something that we cannot ignore, because we are now light years from where we were just a few years ago. But maybe the biggest thing to note about the route optimization is that DPW took care to make sure that this is a seamless transition for residents, meaning that there is no significant change for them. If you put your recycling out on Thursday now, you will still put your recycling out on Thursday once we go back to weekly pickup. You may see your crew come along at a different time of day, but the steps you need to take won't change. This will be a big change for the crews, though, and one for the better. Currently, crews are making about 2,600 stops per route. The new optimization brings that down to 1,800, which means better runs for the crews and a higher likelihood that routes are able to be completed in one shift. I want to commend the team on all the work that has gone into this, from City Administrator Leach to the directors, to all the work. We have a great roadmap for the next few weeks to cross the I's and dot the T's, and I'm confident about the first week of return to recycling in the first week of March. This isn't going to be the last residents hear of this. Soon, DPW will be kicking off an outreach plan and new effort to remind folks on recycling best practices and help get all of us back into the swing of weekly recycling. Now, that is not the only service modernization effort that we're undertaking, and before we jump into questions, I want to quickly lift up something that flew a bit under the radar at the end of last week. When I first took office, we knew that we needed to tackle this issue, and we got to work on it right away. That started with in the March of 2021, when I directed the CEO to work with the Department of Finance to assess the city's procurement system from top to bottom. We did this with internal experts, academic partners, and consultants to identify where the problems were and what needed to be done. That effort had the finance department and their partners doing vendor interviews, supplier surveys, and reviewing approximately $950 million in expenditures and thousands of purchase orders. Then, in the middle of last year, we brought on Adam Main as the city's chief procurement officer and gave him the directive to move this effort into high gear and start immediately implementing some of the improvements that had been identified, which he's done exceptionally well. Last week, we released the Procurement Transformation Plan, which is the culmination of this effort and allows us to move into the next phase of reforming procurement in Baltimore. Just quickly, there are 22 recommendations, and I won't run through them all, but they boil down to 4 key focus areas: people, meaning staffing; policy; technology; and process. Adam and his team have done some really great work already to get us to a much better place, but we have a long way to go. Procurement is a system that touches every single agency, and it may not be headline grabbing, but it is imperative to get it right. And this is a plan and is fixing decades-long issues and doing it in record time. So I encourage everyone to take a look at that great work that they're doing and stay tuned for more updates. And with that, we'll go to questions.
First question to Emily from the Sun.
Yesterday we saw a verdict come in on the former state's attorney of Baltimore. Just wanted to, this is the second, guilty verdict against her. Just wanted to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, I think that, listen, the members of the jury and the court took their job very seriously, and they came out with a verdict. My thoughts really, first and foremost, with the family. Most importantly, those 2 little girls and what they are going through and how they are navigating this. And I think that we all have to be reminded of that and as well. And for me, my focus is always going to be on my job in moving the city of Baltimore forward.
We've had numerous city officials here in, say, the last decade and a half who have been convicted of crimes or have pleaded guilty to crimes, and in some cases, betraying the public's trust. What message do you want to send to the voters of Baltimore? How can they trust their leadership, given that we've seen yet another public figure at this point now convicted?
Well, I can show them better than I can tell them. This is why I operate the way I do. This is why my ethics sheet is always very extensive, as you know, because we can show people that it doesn't have to be that way and that you can operate with the utmost integrity, even when you face attacks and folks accusing you of things that you know that you didn't do. For me, it's about doing this job the right way, as I've done since I walked in that door on September the 4th of 2007.
So with the recycling vehicles, I think it's 13 of the 80 that have been delivered. What sort of customization do they have to go through?
Burke?
Yes, I can take on it. So not just the customization, but we want to do the post-delivery inspection to ensure that the vendors done the QA/QC because we were rushing them and we didn't want to have a point of failure there. So once we completed our post-delivery inspection, this could be everything in the truck, from the hydraulics to the doors, the lights, the dashboard, everything. And then we have the city's decals needs to be installed, where you see the DPW city logos. We have a cancever programming which communicates the fuel tank of the asset with our fuel management system. So at the point of fuel disposal, we would then capture how many miles were driven and as well as how much fuel was dispersed. So that's a system that needs to be installed. Telematics, which is the route optimization, moving us from paper to digital. We need to modify the mirrors and fenders because I've just learned this from my chief of fleet that our customized load packers have an actual nickname in the industry called us Baltimore Packers. So that's what we need to get them into. And we need to also relocate the air filters without getting into too many details because we run into the landfill and then there's dust in there. If the dust gets into the air filter, the regular load packers that they don't go to these landfills will get damaged. So we have to also replace that, and as well as the tag and title installation. So.
And then, some residents' frustration grew to the point that they filed a court petition at one point. This is finally returning in March. What do you say to those residents who have been saying that this should have happened soon?
Well, I think that the way I'm going to lead, Holly, is the same way that I always do. I'm going to tell residents the truth, even when it's unpopular, right? As I always said, the first thing I said when I got sworn in and walked out of these doors on December 8th, 2020, I'll do the right thing and do it the right way, even when it's unpopular. What I would say to those residents is that we are now coming to the end of a long, long journey. There was nothing any of us up here could have done about the supply chain and the trucks not coming. We ordered them in 2021, and they're just starting to arrive here in the city of Baltimore. This is how we can do this and also sustain it. But I would also ask those residents to ask the question, why is it that a mayor who was elected in 2020 is the first mayor to put GPS routes and GPS into systems in Baltimore City? This is something that should have been done many, many years ago that allowed us to operate in a sustainable way, which we'll be able to do moving forward.
There's a hearing in Annapolis tomorrow to discuss the new juvenile crime bill. Will you be attending that hearing to testify, and are you in support of the measures in that bill? Why or why not?
So there are measures that we support. We haven't determined whether it's going to be me or the police commissioner or one of the agencies. As you know, we have our own bills in Annapolis this year dealing with not just juvenile, but public safety in general. Most notably, of course, our legislation around ankle monitoring. And we will be supportive, and there will be representation from either myself directly or the city tomorrow.
Can you talk specifically about some of the measures in that bill that you're most looking forward to seeing enacted?
So I think a lot of the things that we have focused on, of course, for me, the most important thing is our bill, and that is dealing with home monitoring. As you heard me talk about before, we're going to have a trial for Brooklyn Day, the largest mass shooting in the city's history, and we know that one of those individuals was supposed to be monitored by the state of Maryland at that time. When you think about that, and also other probation issues, which I think is another key important portion as we talk about the totality of dealing with crime in Baltimore.
And in your support of this bill specifically, what aspect is it that you're in support of? Is it the juvenile crime aspect, or is it the tough on crime aspect? Because we've seen previous tough on crime measures make their way through Annapolis in the past that you've not been in support of. So,
well, you can try to doctor this in any way that you can. We are supportive of anything that's going to actually impact reducing violence in the city, not just kowtowing to fear-mongering and right-wing talking points. I want to do this the right way, as does Chair Clippinger and many other folks in Annapolis.
Go to Adam.
We were just talking with the council president about the allegations that came out against him, basically, in his ex-wife's fraud trial. He's kind of drawn a separation between mistakes that he's admitting to in his personal life and saying voters can still trust him, constituents can still trust him in his job as city council president. What's your reaction to that? Do you have concerns about his ability?
Well, listen, as I always say, again, first and foremost, I'm always going to be focused on me and my role and my job as the chief executive of the city. As I said before, in this instance, I'm also thinking about their family, most notably those two beautiful little girls. But as long as he is serving in that role as council president, he has a duty to do that role. And the voters in Baltimore will determine whether he should have that or not. For me, I just have to do my job and work with whoever's in the role.
Do you think that city council or other elected officials should be considering calling for his resignation at this point?
That's for them to consider, not me. My job is to do what the mayor of Baltimore should be doing, and that's focusing on continuing to reduce homicides and shootings in Baltimore, continuing to lower the unemployment rate in Baltimore, continuing to have us have a renaissance that is happening in our city.
WMAR, WJZ, that.
Yeah, for the remaining 2 months of the session, other than juvenile crime, other things that are important for Baltimore City, for Annapolis to take up?
Transportation. We talked about this before, right? I think we are very grateful to the governor for stepping in and finding a one-year fix to the highway user revenue and other funds. But we need not only to work on a solution that gets us the outlying years that will, if those outlying cuts start, that will mean 170 less lane miles in the city of Baltimore will be repaved. But also, they heard very clearly from myself, from County Executive Olszewski, from county executives around the state, that we want the money that was taken away from all of us during the reductions to highway user revenue following a Great Recession that we never put back. For us, that's $900 million that we lost. That meant streets, roads, bridges were not taken care of in the city of Baltimore.
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
You skipped Emily.
Oh, sorry.
Emily, do you have one?
Yes, yesterday in Annapolis, there was a hearing about the PAVA Repair Act, which you have been very, very vocal about your support. We did hear from a few criminal law experts urging for a little bit of caution, saying that diminution credits, do overall contribute to safety, and expressing some concerns. Have your thoughts changed at all since that was introduced?
No. Someone that commits a crime like rape or murder, if they get 5 years, they should serve 5 years. If they get 10, they should serve 10. It's that simple.
Yeah, just wondering if you've heard any movement, the state legislature returning local control to Baltimore, sort of doing that next step that needs to happen.
It's going to happen. We're not worried about that at all. We'll invite you to the party, Tyler.
Last question.
I just had one clarifying question on recycling. I believe it was Director Luna that said back during budget hearings when we were discussing when this would all restart that we needed 30 trucks to get recycling back up and running. You mentioned 13. Is 13 enough to do it at this point?
We've also received 7 trucks. That was in previous months, right at the end of calendar year 2023. So with the 7 and the 13 that arrived, that's 20. I will give credit. So our partners over at DGS have done a tremendous job of ensuring that our existing fleet remains on the road longer. And that also means that they're turning around the trucks. So if we do have to send them back into the shop, they're doing a much quicker turnaround to making sure that we have our existing fleet remains on the road. Yeah.
One more question on recycling. I know it's been a while since those were actually ordered, but do we have a dollar figure for how much those trucks actually cost?
Berkey, we can follow up with you. Probably we'll give you that. I don't know the number off the top of my head. Thank you.
Are we coming in within the projected budget for recycling right now? What is in June? What we budgeted or financially?
You mean DPW in general?
Or just, I think in the June budgets hearings, there were some numbers thrown out. I don't have them offhand. Or just for.
Yes. Thank you.